Welcome to the channel, everybody. So we are going to be continuing on our quest towards becoming Paragon today with Act 7.2.5. So this one is an interesting level, and I'm going to tell you guys this is about the time period I've been talking about it where I've started not going in as cold. In previous levels, it's the very first time I go in, we immediately go, into the level, and we get through it. Okay, with these ones, I have been scouting them a little bit more, trying to figure out exactly which path. If I have a few deaths right off the bat, we'll back out, go back in, try again. But there is no additional editing to it. The run I do is the run that is the one I got it completed on. It's the one I felt comfortable where things started to work off the bat. So you're still going to get the deaths. You're still going to see where I struggled at times. You're going to still see the mistakes. It's still not going to be perfection, but it is not the very first time of walking into levels from this point forward. Even when I go back and I rewatch some of these, I see some things we could do differently and things like this. This is really getting to be the point in time from this point forward where you start to really need to understand your roster more than anything. Okay. Just because you've always had that go-to poison champion doesn't mean they're going to work in every scenario the way that you've always used them. And this level is a great example of that. I'll show you what I mean by that a little bit more so as we get into the fights. It's going to be one of those things where switching up and having a different champion that could do similar things without as many requirements or things along those lines are going to become more and more important. You're going to need to understand the diversity of your own roster. You're going to need to have flexibility on who you have leveled up. You're going to need to be able to use some different people in different scenarios because it cannot be just your go-to team anymore. By the time you get to this point, that really shouldn't be as much of a factor, but I know that for some people it still is. So I want to mention that up front. I will tell you myself, this video was recorded over 2 weeks ago. The gameplay of it was originally. The actual edit of it, of course, is coming out today. But just looking at the difference in my own game style from today, the things I've done recently, the things I've gotten better with, the champions I understand a little bit better, I probably would have even brought in a different team than what we bring in for today. But let's go ahead and get in here, take a look at the path, and talk about things a little bit further. So right off the bat here, you can see I got Scorpion, Apocalypse, Archangel, Tigra, and Nick Fury. Now, Nick Fury was supposed to be only for the boss node, but we'll talk about how that went wrong as we get further in. Tigra was a mixed bag. She was also for the boss node as well. The primary one should have been Scorpion and Archangel, with Apocalypse only there primarily for the Horseman synergy. That's not quite how this worked, but let's talk about the nodes and how some of the things could have affected us differently. So right off the bat here, you are going to get the Rage node. Now what this is it's going to cap off all damage that you can possibly do at 2.5% of the max health. But anytime you exceed that, you'll receive a Fury charge. If you get up to 5 Fury charges, attacks become unblockable. Now nextly, they also have Power Shield. Now with Power Shield, any damage that you do off of basic attack is automatically reduced to 0, but your special attacks deal 400% more damage. Now again though, you're gonna have to have more than one source of damage going here, because you're also going to have a couple other things going as well. Hurt Locker is on. With Hurt Locker, if you're throwing multiple of the same specials back to back, you're going to need to throw an immediate heavy in between them. Otherwise, you're going to take 50% of your health as direct damage if you don't do it within 5 seconds. So either vary up your specials, which is not easy to do when you're so limited, or you need to turn around and make sure you're throwing a heavy in between each special and quickly. That again is a lot to ask for, especially with everything else going on here. Lastly, they have poison vulnerability, which means as long as they're poisoned, your attacks do 200% more damage. There is so much going against you that quite well builds upon one another here, but it is quite well doable. Your best thing here is to make sure that you have some good poison champions that you can bring in that can stack up multiple levels of poison, not just a single or a double. You're gonna want to be getting up to 4 and 5 and even 10 or 12 stacks of any debuff that you're putting on when you're going through this. You're also going to want champions that do high special damage. This is, so you're looking at 2 factors there already. Lastly, on top of that too, you're going to need somebody that you can power gain with so that you can turn around and build up to your specials and be able to vary them more often. In this category, there, the crossover of those, there are a few champions out there. They're not necessarily the ones we brought in here, but we can still look at it, see how it went. This is not going to be my cleanest run, but it is going to be the run where we got through. So on this path, you are going to start with Miles Morales, and then you're going to go over to Psylocke, Quake, Ghost Rider, Captain America Infinity War, and then finally end up with Aegon before getting up to the boss area. You are going to have 3 bosses. As you saw there, you have Dragon Man. On top of that, you're going to have Platinum Pool or Void. We did end up deciding to go with Void as the one we were going with here. Like I said, Nick Fury was my primary for this, and Tiger was going to be my secondary, even with class disadvantage, partially because of his particular nodes. The first one is Set and Spike. Now, if you knock down on the defender, he purifies all debuffs and removes them. Now, if he removes 6 or more debuffs off of him when this happens, he takes 500% of your attack as direct damage. So you need to be able to stack up multiple debuffs for when you before you knock him down, because if he has less than 6, you're going to take 50% of his attack as direct damage. This is important. Like I said, you're going to want champions that can build up a lot of debuffs. Tiger is really good about this. She can get those rupture charges on there pretty easily, especially if you're doing it right. But you have to be careful because more often than not, getting the rupture charges can cause him to knock down. So getting enough charges before knocking him down can be a struggle. Nick Fury, on the other hand, is really great because of the fact that not only does he have the class advantage, but it's really easy to stack up his bleeds without knocking down the opponent. So if you can get a solid amount of bleeds on them before you knock him down, you can eat him up quickly. That being said, we didn't do that. So let's go ahead and get in here. The other 2 things that you're going to want to make sure you're looking at is he has Safeguard, so you cannot deal more than 1% damage from any one source. So again, you're going to want to be stacking up as many debuffs as possible, especially damage dealing debuffs. If you got 10 stacks of bleed on him, you're doing 10% damage as well as what you're attacking, which means you could get up to an 11% of damage, and that's the max you're going to be able to do outside of knocking him down with more than 6 charges on him. Lastly, he has Force of Will, so his ability accuracy you cannot reduce whatsoever. So let's go ahead and get in here, take a look at the fights, see how I screwed them up on a few different occasions. Right off the bat here, we brought in Archangel against Miles Morales, just trying to get the quick poisons in there and eat him down. You can see here he was catching us early right off the bat, but we were able to get some bleeds on him to get the poisons on him to get the neurotoxins, which were able to eat up quite a bit of his stuff. Now this is where, again, Archangel is a mixed bag for this level. He is absolutely wonderful in one sense, especially once you get him over to Horseman. But in the other sense, because of the fact that you do have to do the bleeds to get the poisons on, it is a mixed bag, especially as you're going to see later on as we get into a couple other fights. Because there are some fights, like the Ghost Rider fight, where you're not going to be able to throw on the bleeds. So that means the poisons can't get put on, and that kind of defeats the purpose. For that purpose, we did bring in Scorpion, but unfortunately, because we messed up a little early, we ended up putting ourselves in a bad position, and Scorpion was not exactly up for the task. But we'll talk about that again once we get there. You can see here we did come in against Psylocke right away because, of course, she is a mutant champion with Apocalypse, so that we could go ahead and get the charges we needed to be able to Horseman, Archangel. And you can see here now that we've done that, we're getting those bleeds a lot faster. We're getting the poisons on there a lot more consistently, getting the neurotoxins on there. And we've about got her down, and then we slip up. And that's what the problem is it doesn't take much to slip up, especially when you're so limited on the amount of damage that you're able to do on these ones. So keep that in mind. You know, that's the thing about it is I always put these out as these being the easiest path. The way I say the easiest path is because it's the easiest path based off the champions I took in and my skill level. I will tell you, I research a lot of different paths. I get suggested to me through multiple different sources, through other YouTubers, through members of my alliance, through people I've been in alliance with in previous times, through different forums, what other easier paths may be. But then I go in there and somebody's telling me, hey, this is the easiest path there is. And I end up eating up myself and realizing that that isn't going to be the one that I can take. Now, on some of the earlier levels, that isn't normally as much of an issue. But as you're getting into the later parts of Act 7 here, it is. It's about making sure, again, like I was talking earlier, understanding your roster. You know, Immortal Abomination would have probably been a lot better for this than even Scorpion or Archangel here, just because of the fact that he can put on those poisons a little easier and in a higher stack volume. You know, somebody like a Dr. Voodoo could have been interesting to bring in here, especially considering the fact that if you're timing your combos right, he can stack countless numbers of poison on you. There's so many different ways to look at this. But this is, again, like I said, understanding your own personal roster better. It becomes very important as you're getting into these later acts. It's also going to become very important as you're getting into some of the more difficulty in-game questing, because some of that stuff, again, you need specific counters. One of the things that's actually came up very much so in this last season of War for me is understanding, you know, once you get up to a certain map, even on War, you need to understand your counters better. You need to understand who exactly you're using, making sure that they're going to be the ones that can get it. Because just because you have this champion that's been walking through everything level after level, and they're your favorite champion, and they're working out really well for you, like a Tigra there, she should easily be able to shut down Ghost Rider here. But can't do it. Just not set up as easily for him in this particular mode as what she is in a different one. You can see here we've got Nick Fury in. Okay, he can't bleed Ghost Rider, which means we're doing absolutely very little to him there. And there's absolutely no reason why I should be having Nick Fury in at this point, other than doing that special 3, which took a decent amount of damage off him, but still didn't do nearly as much as what we're wasting our time on here. Just trying to eat through as much as we can. But really, honestly, at this point, what did this come down to? I'd already lost every other champion on my team. So before I was going to use a team revive, I might as well use Nick Fury. But here's the problem with that. once I go ahead and don't finish Ghost Rider here with Nick Fury, which, as you're going to see, unfortunately, I'm not going to do, I'm going to lose his LMD form. So that means once I get over to Void and I need him to be the champion that's doing the work, he's already at a disadvantage. Um, Again, this is where having a better counter or being more efficient with Scorpion would have been a lot better for us. I could have done a single revive, even if I did need to revive a single time, and let Scorpion do what he does, and should have been able to get through it. But again, had to turn around, bring Tigra back in. This was probably the hardest fight of this entire level for me because I didn't have really the counter that I should have had in place to try and take on this fight. You can see Tiger eventually, with enough rupture charges, was able to do what we wanted to do there. But you can see here, this is also where bringing Tiger into Void, you can see could have bit us really hard. You see often there, getting him up to 3 or 4 rupture charges and then knocking him down. That's exactly the last thing we want to do when we get to Void there. Okay, this is another great example here. This one should have been a straightforward, easy fight. And in a lot of ways, it was really just me screwing up. I was already so frustrated because of the Ghost Rider fight that, in spite of the fact that Archangel should have been able to eat Captain America Infinity War alive, we instead barely did any damage to him and ended up having to bring Nick Fury in and try and do it that way. Didn't work there. So there we go. We got 50% off of him, brought in Apocalypse. Again, only at 40% health, which is not great. We're coming in against really high level champions and knowing that we have so many things that if we screw up, we can actually end our own push just by making the wrong move, like throwing a special twice in a row without getting a heavy in time, which we did on a couple of occasions as this continues on here. We're almost done with Captain America Infinity War here, and that's going to leave us just 2 fights left, the Aegon fight and then the Void fight. But, you know, still had to take more revives here than we should have. This is definitely one of those ones that we're going to have to revisit down the road. It was a rough one. I will fully admit that. Now, you'll see here, we come in a little bit more. We took a moment and calmed down a little bit, which is always one of my best advice. If you're starting to get frustrated, you're starting to slip up in some of your fights, set it down for a moment, walk away, go grab yourself a drink, go watch a show for a minute, whatever. Come back and finish a fight. You'll see the difference here of Archangel versus Aegon. Yes, I've got class advantage, but we came in wounded. We came in right. We got our parries in. We got those charges built up, and we went ahead and took him cleanly without having to use the potions and revives that we have been doing for fight after fight before this. So just getting that fixed up and making sure that we're doing that. Now we came over to Void. Like I said, Nick Fury, I really needed him at full health, full LMD, so that we could go ahead and eat through a lot, build up without Void being able to eat me as much. Coming in wounded was just not the best of plans. All it did is it ended up costing me a lot more revives and a lot more time than we needed to do here. This could have been a 1 or a 2 shot at worst case scenario if we would have stuck to the plan, made sure Nick Fury was on the bitch all the way up until we actually needed him there. But, of course, instead, we slip up. We have to use several revives. He's eating us alive little by little, which is why we need that full health pool. And even just a small slip up there, you can see we should have already had him down, and we finally do. But, guys, like I said, it was a little rough on this one. Definitely one of those ones that we are going to be coming back to. We're going to go back over all of Act 7 and eventually all of the previous acts as well and look at different paths. But we wanted to get this initial push in and get Paragon achieved. And we have gotten ourselves one step closer here. Able to get another tier 5 basic, which of course helps us build up our champions a little bit more. And that is the end of it for us, folks. We are on to Gwyn Master. Now, this one is going to be a fight for us. It's not nearly as bad as something like the Grandmaster was for us, but it is definitely going to be a little bit of a struggle. So make sure you're sticking tuned and stopping back in for that one. It is something I know several people are looking forward to. I will see you guys back for that one, as well as a live on Sunday and a crystal opening on Monday. Remember, guys, if you haven't already, please go ahead and smash that subscribe button, and I'll see you back for the next one. Peace out.